I don't know what you call this law, but the law of psychology where novelties wear out. You know, things are fun at first, but then they get more and more boring. Whereas the EUC did the opposite. It was fun at first, but then it got more and more and more fun up until month 3, like I said, where you're like really a proficient rider. But then it never got boring. It's been 2 years now, and it's still not boring. I mean, it hasn't lost its novelty or seemingly at all. If anything, it's probably got even more fun because I feel like I'm still learning. And it never got boring on Uber Eats either. I've probably made like $15,000 already on the EUC. Still not a job. It still doesn't feel like a job. It feels like I'm playing a game. Crazy, right? Because like I said, the electric skateboard, that's like a game, but it got boring. It got boring in like 1,000 miles. The EUC still hasn't, not one bit. I love it. I fucking love getting a long trip, especially when I get my phone. I'm like, oh yes, I gotta go all the way out here to pick up a freaking cheeseburger and drop it off like 2 blocks away. I love it. And that's how you deliver Uber. Just kidding. That's my drink. Let's go do this video, guys. Alright, that is weird. That is one of those things. That's one of those things where it's pretty rare, but I've seen it enough times now to think it's not an accident. Like, what the fuck is that thing? Look at it. It's a piece of a tree, obviously, with a power line running through it. See that? Lucky I got my phone with a optical zoom. Look at that. Power line running straight through this piece of log. So you wonder, how did it get there? And I've seen this a few times now. Like, I remember this other spot where I saw one, probably 3 times. So that can't be an accident. I mean, if it was just that one, if that was the only one in the whole world, then I might think it was an accident. Like, I don't know, maybe they were cutting a tree down. Maybe there was a tree out here. They were cutting the tree down and they decided to just leave that piece there. You know, they cut around it and just left a chunk. What is that thing? Freaking weird. Maybe that's like the old technology. Wi-Fi, phone calls, fax. Maybe it cleans out the signal or something. Voila! How about that? Pretty crazy. How's it going, guys? Back again at this reservoir place. And for anyone that hasn't seen it, it's like, well, there's a lot more to it. There's all these gravel roads everywhere. I'm here with my Max, by the way. And I got something I haven't had on the channel for a while. Little medical aid. Might get that one out later. But yeah, it's a nice place with lots of gravel tracks. And it's awesome for drifting. But I'm not going to drift my Max yet, and it's been all wet anyway, so it's not good for drifting right now. When gravel gets wet, it becomes super sticky, so you can't really slide on it anymore. But aside from that, I don't want to drift my Max because it's rough on the aesthetics of the shell and all that, because like it sprays rocks, and it tends to like spray rocks up at itself, or you get all these chips everywhere on the paint. You wear out the tire really quickly, and if you crash, of course, you're gonna scratch up the machine. So yeah, I don't want to do that to my Max quite yet, But I reckon I will, like in the future. Once it looks a bit past a certain point, when it becomes a scruffy, rusty, when it gets to a certain level of rust, then I'll start drifting on this thing. Rusted to the max, like the OG. But yeah, let's talk about something interesting. I thought I'll talk about it while it's fresh in my mind. And that topic is first EUC. First ever EUC for me was the 16th of July 2020. Now, I remember that date. It's in my head, like I didn't look that up before making this video. I just know that date because I remember looking at the date when it said like your shipment has arrived on my phone, and then I got it and I was so excited that day, so it just kind of like burned into my memory. Even though it's weird because I didn't enjoy the machine straight out of the box. Like, of course you don't know how to ride it when you first get an EUC, so you don't have much fun on it really. It can be a bit of a pain, falling over constantly and just learning this new thing. I learned it pretty quickly though. I learned it in like this really messy area. You've seen where I do my workshop stuff. There's all like shit everywhere basically. And that's where I learned my EUC. I was lazy. I was thinking like I'll take this thing to a car park or whatever and I'll learn it in an open space, but I never did. I just stayed there in this messy area, dodging all this debris as I was learning. Like from the beginning, I was working around obstacles, you know, even like I couldn't balance it straight away. You know, at first I couldn't even go 1 foot, but you know, after like, I don't know, half an hour, let's say, I could go a couple of feet or whatever, maybe 5-6 feet. And then I'd have to dodge an obstacle. So I'd be like, you know, I'd get my first little roll and then instantly I have to dodge something. So from the beginning, I learned to like swerve. And then after like, I would say an hour or two, I was feeling pretty good. So I could like roll the whole way down my driveway, let's say. And I could turn around in a tight space, like with all this stuff everywhere. You know, like after like 2 hours, I was able to do a quick, like, you know, 180 and then turn back the other way sort of thing. And then I went to the shopping center that day and got like 2 bags of groceries, and I rode back with a bag of groceries in each hand on my first day. But I wasn't confident in riding yet. Like I would literally look one way and my whole body would go, like the whole thing would go that way, you know, the EUC. Literally like out onto the road even. Like I'd be on the footpath, I would look right and the EUC would swerve out onto the road. Like that's how bad, you know, it was just my first day ever. But I could balance it. So, you know, I thought, you know, I'll do this little shopping run. But it felt like crap. I was like, dude, this is like, I'm not really having fun. I'm like holding these shopping bags, just trying to stay alive basically. And, you know, like in my memory, that day wasn't that exciting. It wasn't that fun. But I still remember the date. You know, like, because it turned into something greater. It turned into an obsession, an addiction. You know, you guys know how it is. It slowly got better. You know, I got a bit better on the next day. And something I should mention, when you first learn, you get tired really quickly. Like, it was probably 2 miles, no, not even. Let's say 1.5 miles was my total riding distance to go get that shopping. And I came back like burning, like my legs, calf muscles, my ankle muscles or whatever. They were all like really sore just from that little ride. And then even the next day, I would go for like, let's say a 2 mile ride. Super sore when I came back, like really tired. Then I, you know, slowly got more and more miles on each ride. But it wasn't that fun because you're super tired after 2 miles. It's like, you know, this ain't that good. And I should mention, before getting an EUC, I was into e-skate, like electric skateboards. And before that, I was riding electric scooters to commute. You know, it was just a commuter solution. And I loved it. The scooter I loved from the beginning. I was like, dude, it was my first ever PEV. So it was my introduction into the world of light transport, personal mobility. And I loved it. I was like, dude, these motors sound awesome. They're super quiet, but they make like a Star Wars sound. Just the way this little thing just gets you around, I just loved it to death. Even more so than my E-skate and EUC experience, I would say, because it was my first ever PEV. So if you can get your head around what I'm saying there, even though I like EUCs 1,000 times more than scooters, but just that initial experience was like magical. But anyway, then I got into E-skate because the scooter got boring. I should mention that. The scooter got boring. Like, it was, it didn't get boring. It just like got less and less fun. Because at the beginning, like I said, it was magic. And then after like, a month, 2 months, I was like, yeah, this is still fun, but it's not that fun. It's like, it's more of just a commuter. It's just a way to get from A to B. And it's an awesome way to get from A to B compared to a car or anything really, even a motorbike. Awesome way, because it's so small and light. You can take it into anywhere you're going basically. Not so much with a scooter, I must say. Like many people would complain about it, like, oh, can you leave it outside? Whereas with the EUC, hardly anyone will ask you to leave it outside because it looks like a briefcase. It is basically a briefcase that can replace your car, Pretty amazing. But anyway, after the scooter, I got into E-skate and I loved that even more because you've got your hands free. I'll talk about this more in detail in the future because I should mention I found the E-skate to be much safer than the scooter. And I'll talk about that in the future. And now I find the EUC to be much safer than the E-skate. Like, it doesn't even compare. I should mention that my scooter was pretty dangerous. It was fast and it had tiny wheels, so it was kind of insane, that thing. So yeah, my E-skate compared to that was safer. And then EUCs are way safer than E-skates. That's my experience anyway, from riding all of them for years. And anyway, so then I got into E-skate. I loved that. Then that got boring. This is actually kind of interesting, guys, because I did Uber Eats on an E-skate. I never did Uber Eats on an electric scooter, but I did it on the E-skate. And it was fun. I'll spark this up. Look, I'm not going to do any editing, so I can just upload this and just smash out videos faster. So this is going straight up, guys, just so you know. I'll try and get out like a video a day if I can. I don't know, maybe not, but we'll see. I love the E-skate. And then I started doing Uber Eats. And it was awesome. I was making money. I made like, I think $1,200 on my E-skate doing Uber Eats as a bicycle delivery guy. Bicycle, all right? This is important because what happened, basically when you're working as a bicycle, you'll get all the short trips and nothing else. You won't get any like really long trips. And I was doing great. Like I was getting, lots of trips and making like, even some weeks I'd make like $800 or whatever. No, what am I saying? Actually, don't scrap that. I don't know how much I made per week because this didn't last long. By the time I had made $1,200, that was it. I never did it again. Why? Because I got banned as a bicycle because I was going too fast. This e-skate had a top speed of 25 miles an hour. So I don't understand how that works. Like, bicycle riders can easily do 25 miles an hour if they've like, on a fast bike. So yeah, it's kind of weird, isn't it? But I got banned. I got a warning first saying, you look to be going too fast for a bicycle. And I was like, shit, I gotta slow this thing down. It's just a freaking board with a motor. Like, it wasn't that fast, guys. It had one motor in the back corner. A skateboard has 4 wheels. This thing had one motor in the back. I think it was the back right corner. So it had one wheel drive, powering one corner of the freaking thing. It was stupid, I reckon, but I bought it because it had such long range, and it was the only skateboard on the market with this kind of range. 780 watt hour battery and a stated range of 55 miles, which was actually quite realistic if you stuck to like smooth paths and didn't go too fast. If you kept it around 30 kilometers an hour, you actually get 55 miles out of 780 watt hours. They're so efficient, those things. That's just how they work because of the small hard wheels, I guess. It's like a train rolling on tracks almost. So, yeah, basically what happened though, it was good for Uber Eats too because I had long range. But because I got banned as a bicycle, Uber Eats didn't fire me. They didn't say, we're kicking you off the platform. They just said you can't work as a bicycle anymore because you're going too fast. Like they don't believe I'm on a bicycle. I didn't want to say, look, I'm just on this electric skateboard because, I didn't know how they would react to that. So I just said, fuck it. I'm just quitting. Because my choice was to either work as a car delivery guy on a freaking skateboard doing car trips, like super long missions. And I thought that's like in my mind, I was considering, I was like, dude, I want to keep doing this. Like it's fun, but really as a car, I kept thinking about it like, yeah, maybe. And I was like, nah, come on. It's retarded. Like some voice in my head, like voice of reason was just saying, dude, this is insane. Just quit. There's nothing you can do now. So I thought, I kept up hope that one day they'll let me back on as a bicycle, And I tried it here and there. I was like, yeah, nah, and they never did. So I'm banned as a bike, right? And then comes in the EUC into the picture, right? At my 16X. No, wait, before we talk about that, let's just mention something important about the electric skateboard. By the time I got to 1,200 miles, guys, of Uber, not 1,200 miles, $1,200, which is probably about 1,200 miles, to be honest. Probably 1,200 kilometers. But by the time I'd made $1,200 on Uber Eats on an electric skateboard, the thing started to get boring. Just like, I've talked in the past about how anything really can get boring, You buy a Ferrari even. You drive it every day. One day it's not going to be as fun as it was when you first got it, right? Imagine in 10 years' time you've driven that every single day. In traffic even. You're not going to have the same thrill as you had at the beginning. And with this skateboard, it was like that just in 1,200 miles, basically. Like, it was super fun at first. And by the, say the 1,000-mile mark, or $1,000 mark, let's say, you get about $1 a mile or maybe $1 a kilometer. I don't know. But it's about that. By the time I had hit that $1,000, I was like, dude, this feels like a job. Like, it's not fun anymore. Like, I got to get up, get on this skateboard and deliver food. And it was no fun anymore. I was like, I still did it, but it was like, dude, this does feel like a job now. That quickly, right? That's weird, eh? Like, probably 3 weeks. In 3 weeks, it went from being fun to being a chore. But anyway, after I got kicked off the bicycle platform, I was like, fuck this, I'm not going to do it anymore. I didn't do it for probably a whole year went by and I was off Uber Eats completely. But then, now bring the EUC into the picture, right? 16X. And like I mentioned, I didn't enjoy the EUC right from the beginning because you got to learn it. It's not that fun at the start. And of course, I didn't do Uber Eats straight away. I didn't just get my 16X and start Uber Eats on it. That came later. Probably after I got my Sherman, I think, is when I started Uber Eats. But anyway, I got the 16X and it wasn't that fun from the beginning because you have to learn it. And I even thought to myself, this thing is unstable. Like, I remember probably on my third day, I was riding it down the road, and like I said, you get tired quickly when you're a beginner. And I thought to myself, and I remember this very clearly, this thought I had in my head where I was like, dude, I'm glad I've still got that electric skateboard back at home because that thing is way more stable than this thing. I'm on this EUC. I didn't realize that it's going to get better and better over time, I was like, yeah, this is just what they are. And I thought to myself, yeah, this is all right, but it's not great, I'm not going to return this thing. Like, I'm not like regretful about the purchase, but I'm just not that enthused about the device, I even thought, I'm glad I've got my e-skate because it's better. It's more stable, feels safer. I can go way longer. It doesn't get me so tired. But then the magic of the 16X started to grow on me. Slowly, just day by day, I would keep stretching the miles of my rides, longer and longer rides each time. And it got to the point where at some point, because it just kept getting better and better, and at some point it got better than the e-skate, and from that point on, I never rode my e-skate again. I probably did one ride just because I kept saying to myself, because I remember that day, it's like I crossed over a threshold where now I'm never going to use the e-skate. It just sat there on the wall. I had like a hanger for it. And I got to a point where I was thinking, dude, I got to ride that thing, Like, I've been riding this EUC every day. Like, I never ride the e-skate anymore. And I paid for that thing. I got to ride it. And I kept saying, all right, tomorrow I'll ride it. Tomorrow I'll ride it. And I never did. So I sold it. I got decent money for it too. I got like $1,200, I think. So yeah, it's gone now. I don't really miss it, to be honest. And from that point on, the EUC just kept getting better and better and better. Like I said, it surpassed the e-skate, replaced the e-skate, but it hadn't stopped yet. It was still getting better and better and better. Like, that was probably only the 2-week mark of me buying my EUC. Like 2 weeks after I had learned to ride it. And it had already replaced my e-skate, but it was still getting better because I was still getting better at riding it. It's like a long learning experience. You can learn it quickly. You can learn to balance it and just like roll and do like simple turns. But to actually get to a point of being a proficient rider takes like 3 months, I reckon. And by the time you get there, by the time you've gone past that 3-month learning phase, it's just at its maximum enjoyment. Like, you enjoy that thing more than ever. More than you did on month 1, month 2, week 1, whatever. It just gets better and better. And that's why the EUC kind of breaks the law of, I don't know what you call this law, but the law of psychology where novelties wear out. Things are fun at first, but then they get more and more boring. Whereas the EUC did the opposite. It was fun at first, but then it got more and more and more fun up until month 3, like I said, where you're like really a proficient rider. But then it never got boring. It's been 2 years now, and it's still not boring. I mean, it hasn't lost its novelty or seemingly at all. If anything, it's probably got even more fun because I feel like I'm still learning. And it never got boring on Uber Eats either. I probably made like $15,000 already on the EUC doing Uber Eats. Still not a job. It still doesn't feel like a job. It feels like I'm playing a game. Crazy, right? Because like I said, the electric skateboard, that's like a game. But it got boring. It got boring in like 1,000 miles. The EUC still hasn't, not one bit. I love it. I fucking love getting a long trip, especially when I get my phone. I'm like, oh yes, I gotta go all the way out here to pick up a freaking cheeseburger and drop it off like 2 blocks away. I love it. Get paid good money because like the longer your trips are, the more you get paid. And it's like getting paid for riding. It's like, oh, you want to come for an EUC ride and get paid for it? That's what it's like still. And I love it. And I can't honestly see it getting boring. If it hasn't gotten boring in 2 years, will it ever get boring? That's my question. But let's spark this medicine finally. I don't think it will get boring, to be honest. And I've spoken to people about this, like old school riders, and they say the same thing, that they haven't gotten bored of it one single bit in all this time. Like, years and years of riding. I know this guy's like been riding since 2013 or something. And he's called Dale Walker, by the way. Shout out to Dale. It's funny he's called Walker because he ain't much of a walker, is he? He's a roller. But this guy goes backwards at like top speed. Like literally, he's on a 16X when I saw him. And he's going backwards at like 50 Ks an hour for like the whole ride. He does his whole ride backwards. Crazy. And yeah, man, he says the same thing, like, yeah, you don't get bored of these things at all. And then I got the Sherman. No, sorry, I should have said the Sherman earlier. I think I got the Sherman around the same time I started all the Uber Eats stuff. Trying to remember, I can't really remember, but it might have been in fact the case that I never did any Uber Eats until I got the Sherman, and then I was like, dude, this thing's got so much range. I just saw the potential in it to make money doing like delivery stuff. And man, was I not wrong. You can make like it is about $1. It's actually a bit more than $1 a kilometer now that I remember. Because normally I do like, say I do a 40 kilometer run, like 40 kilometers of deliveries, I'll have around $60 normally by then. So it's around $1.50 per kilometer. And the Sherman, the original Sherman can get 100 kilometers, about 100, the way I ride. You know, if you ride harder, you'll get less. If you ride softer, you'll get more. But the way I ride during my deliveries, because that's different again, like it's not the same way I would ride on some other kind of ride, you know. Doing deliveries, I tend to get a bit more, I reckon even, probably 110, maybe 120. Because a lot of the time you're going slow, you know, just cruising in, like, I don't know, let's say through apartment sort of areas where you're like maybe looking for an address, or even cruising through like the mall, like Rundle Mall, where you can like ride through, but if you go slowly, no one will complain. If you go fast, you'll be like a menace out there. So I tend to go slow a lot during my deliveries. Not a lot, like I still go fast a lot, but then there'll be phases of slow riding, which will give me more range. And so anyway, I get 120 kilometers, so I can make like $240. No, not 240, 180. $180. Yeah, that's about perfect actually. Because that's what I reckon the most I've ever made of my Sherman is $200. So yeah, that checks out. And now with the Max, little Maxi here, I can make a bit more. This will get me 140 to 150 kilometers the way I ride on Uber. So that means I can make 225 now on a single charge. Think about that too, because you make $225 on a single charge. And so how many times do you have to charge this thing up and ride it to make your money back on it? And this is all Australian dollars, by the way, so it's just put this camera up. Yeah, this is all Australian dollars, so in American it's like a bit less. But anyway, in Australian dollars, I make 225 per charge, and the thing costed 5,000 Australian dollars. So roughly 20 rides. 20 rides will get you 4,500, 22 rides, basically. 22 rides, and you've paid off your machine. The machine, this thing's gonna last freaking ages too. Like, if you look after it, it's gonna get you around 200,000 kilometers on the battery. So like a car, basically. That's freaking 10, 20 years worth of riding. More, it's mind-blowing. But you pay that thing off in 22 rides. It blows my mind because each one of those rides is fun. It doesn't feel like work. It's like 22 long cruises. You know those cruises that Marty does? 100 miles, something like that. That's kind of the thing you do. But it's all missions. So it's more fun, in fact. Like I said, I enjoy doing Uber more than a normal ride. Because a normal ride, you're just moving and moving. You just keep going. So in a way, it's kind of monotone. With Uber Eats, it's more fun because you learn all these new areas. Because you're forced to go wherever they tell you to go. And you tend to go to new spots that you would never have gone to. You learn new restaurants, new suburbs, shortcuts. And it feels like a game because you got your phone, you get your mission, you got the map, and you ride while you're looking at the map. It's like you're playing a game. It's crazy. I want to do this again. I want to buy a master and then pay itself off in probably 20 rides. But yeah, let's end the video here, guys. We're getting to the 30-minute mark. And I don't want to make it too long. Let's finish up with the medicine.